and gentlemen, here it is, the most listened to radio show on the planet. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
Hey, this is Hunter from Thrills United, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi, this is Skylar from Coaster Kids and Thrills United, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi, I'm Billy Mafusky with Thrills United, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hi, I'm Jacopo. I'm the Thrills United Coaster representative from Rome, Italy, and you are listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Hey guys, it's Logan from Thrills United, and you're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast.
Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Coaster Challenge podcast is here. It's time to face your fears. Get that theme park therapy and lend us both your Coaster Challenge podcast is here. Your fear can disappear. We know that theme park therapy can dry up all your tears. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? Yes, I accept the Coaster Challenge. Do you accept the Coaster Challenge? We accept because you know we're not average.
You're listening to the Coaster Challenge podcast. A journey where people become fearful to fearless, all from riding roller coasters. So please, secure your hats and glasses and keep your hands and arms inside the podcast. It's time to accept the Coaster Challenge with your hosts, Andrew Locke.
Hi everyone, this is Andrew from Coaster Challenge. Welcome. Today we have a special guest. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking to this particular guest today, given some uniquities about where she's lived and the variety of places she's lived, actually. I'd like to welcome to the podcast, Thrills United and Coaster Kids rep, Marina Davatelis. Welcome, Marina.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on. So you and I have met a couple times in person, but we've talked a lot over Instagram and always enjoy our chats. And, you know, you and I share some favorites.
Yeah.
Including one place in particular, which we'll talk about later, that a lot of people, a lot of coaster enthusiasts and whatnot don't necessarily get to go to because it's not here in the U.S. And we'll have, again, we'll have fun talking about that here in the interview. But I always enjoy your passion for that place and the passion that I share as well. And again, like I was saying in the intro here, you're a military brat, as the saying goes, right? So even though you're fairly young, you've experienced a lot of the world, especially Europe and some other places. So I think it's interesting. You have an interesting perspective as a younger enthusiast that, still has all these experiences. Yeah. So that's one of the reasons why I wanted to interview you. So welcome.
Thank you.
Awesome. So we can go ahead and get started. The first question is kind of just for you to kind of share about yourself. So just tell us about yourself and about your love of parks and coasters.
Yeah. So my name is Marina. I currently live in Orlando. But I grew up going to different parks kind of everywhere. Like you said, I'm a military brat. So I lived in Japan, Germany, and now here. So every summer I would come back to Florida and Virginia and go to the parks there. So I grew up going to Disney. And then I had, of course, the Germany parks as well. My mom loved the parks too, so she took me all the time. So it's kind of been in my life forever. And I just fell in love with them the more I went. So
Nice. That's cool that your mom was into it.
Yeah.
So yeah, you can share that with her. That's always a great way to bond families and so forth. I not so much involved anymore, but I used to be involved with the Ace Ride With Us podcast for Ace. I was one of the founding producers of that. And I ran a segment for quite some time that I coined the name. I love puns and double entendres. Coasters Run in the Family. And it's about families, multiple generations, brothers and sisters, or parents and kids, or grandparents and kids, or all three generations, or whatever the case may be, of where there are multiple enthusiasts, across generations. And and the interesting thing about that is it tends to really strengthen the family bond when you have that. And I see that not just with those interviews I've done, but friends of mine. I know multiple parent, children, friends of mine that I have that they're both generations are into coasters and parks and have a really great time with them. I have quite a few friends actually that fall into that category. So it's kind of fun. So, and I think you and I have talked about this on Instagram a little bit, but messaging and all that. But for you, even though you're an American, you're kind of like a European tourist or Asian tourist. where, you come to Orlando in the summer, like a lot of people from Europe and Asia and elsewhere do, and get to, enjoy these amazing parks, but they're not your home parks, but they sort of are. Whereas the parks in like Germany, especially, are kind of like your home. So you kind of have that backwards kind of thing.
Yeah, it's really cool, like to have basically two different homes like across the globe, because my family was here, so I'd come visit them and go to like Universal, Disney, and in Virginia, like VGW and King's Dominion, but then I could go back to Germany and have the parks there.
Yeah, that's, I mean, for me, from my opinion, I've traveled all over the world, not because I was a military brat or I was in the military, but just because of the jobs I've had in the civilian sector, if you will. I've done a lot of traveling for work, and I've also done some traveling for pleasure too, but a lot of it has been for work, where I'll be staying over a weekend, or I'll have a jet lag recovery day that my company would give me, or whatever the case may be, where I'd have extra time and I would make really good use of that time all over Asia, Middle East, Europe, all over the US. So I have similar experiences, but not for the same reason. And from my perspective, having been to parks all over the world, the best parks that I've been to, the two hot spots for them are here in Orlando and in Germany.
Yeah.
And, I mean, Japan has great parks. There's some amazing parks in China, but and again, we'll get into that later about the German parks. But you can have a very unique perspective on those. So, but thanks for sharing a little bit about yourself. So, can you maybe talk about? You've already kind of mentioned that you've lived in Germany, Japan, of course, the U.S. Would you say that because you've had access to like these parks and these amazing places, again, living in Orlando, living in Germany, living in Japan, is that really kind of what made you an enthusiast, or maybe your mom being into it as well, being near these amazing parks, or, kind of share about that?
100%. I think a lot of it is because of my mom, because she like grew up taking me to those places because she loved them so much. And if I wasn't exposed to that, I think like so consistently throughout my life, I don't think I would have fallen in love with it as much. I definitely still think that I'd be into it. But that really like helped get it going.
Sure.
Yeah, but I actually was always terrified of coasters, so I would ride like, the tamer ones. And it actually wasn't until I met up with Logan from Coaster Kids that I really kind of got over my fear. So
nice. Yeah, Logan and Jeff, they're very good friends of ours and of the podcast. We actually did, you might know this, God, what was it? End of season 1, I think early season 2 it was. We did a Coaster Kids month where we had 4 different episodes, because we release every week of a different Coaster Kid. And the ultimate episode was with Logan, interview with Logan. And I've interviewed Jeff myself, and Jeff and I are, we're pretty close. Jeff's an awesome guy. What a great guy. Very wise person. And he's very close friends of mine from Ohio, Larry and Gene Lyons, and some others too. So we all know each other, and just a great group of people. I mean, I've met so many incredible people through this hobby. I've met some not so great people too, but thankfully those in the minority. In any case, and speaking of great people, another reason why I wanted to have you on the show is a friend of mine, and of course, friend of yours, Scott Schaefer, Orlando Scott, or Upstop Scott, as he's known different ways. He's an awesome person, and he speaks so highly of you. I know you guys are close, and I knew that you'd be a great person to talk to. And Scott, of course, thinks the world of you. So that alone is enough reason to have you on. So, anyways, so you mentioned fear, so that's actually a good segue into kind of the next part of the interview. So, next kind of few questions. We're going to talk about what I've coined the term fear journey, which is pretty, I want to say always. We've run into a couple of people in these interviews. We've done now, we're 120, 130 of these interviews or so now. We've run across a couple of people that never really experienced fear in their lives, for the most part. And they never were afraid of rides or coasters or heights or versions or, launches or whatever the case may be. That's just the way they are. And hey, that's cool that they're wired that way. They're lucky in a way to not have fear and anxiety. That's not how the majority of us work, though. The majority of us, yourself, myself, we had fear of coasters. We've dealt with that sort of anxiety in our lives. And so with the fear journey, we talk about how you conquer that fear and what the impacts of that were. So to go through that journey, we kind of go through the theme park time machine, go back, not now, but go into your past. So to start with, what is the first coaster that you rode?
The first coaster I rode was Barnstormer at Magic Kingdom.
Of course, that's a great first coaster for you. Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, that makes a lot of sense. For me, it was very similar. It was Space Mountain in Disney World, Kingdom. So when I was like 4 years old. So Barnstormer, I'm a little older than you. Barnstormer did not exist when I was 4. But anyways, yeah. Okay. Now, moving probably past the Barnstormer, I'm guessing there was probably something later for you. What is the coaster that really intimidated you or scared you the most?
It was actually Loch Ness Monster at Busch Gardens, Williamsburg.
Nice.
I still remember the first time I rode it. I was 12 years old, and my mom loved that ride. But I was terrified of like inversions, so that was the first coaster I rode with an inversion. And I remember my mom like trying to drag me through the line. I think I was like crying. I was so scared. I just did not want to get on because I was like so terrified of going upside down. But yeah, definitely that one.
Nice. That's a classic. We've never had that one. That's the first time I think that's been mentioned as the one that scared someone the most. But it makes sense because you were young, and I know you mentioned earlier that you used to go to King's Dominion, Busch Gardens, Williamsburg, parks here on the East Coast in addition to Orlando. And it's got multiple inversions, of course, the interlocking loops it's famous for. I mean, I can relate to you too, because that was my big fear. It wasn't about going fast or heights. I've really never been afraid of those things. It was inversions. I was so afraid. I mentioned this before on the podcast, but I was so afraid of going upside down. I wouldn't do somersaults in phys ed class. I refused. I was like, I'm not going upside down. Even though it's right on the ground. It's like
I was actually scared for a similar reason because I grew up doing dance and gymnastics. But when I was 9 years old, I broke my arm, and ever since then I was like terrified of like doing flips or anything like that because I broke my arm doing a flip. I broke it in like 3 places, and I had to get surgery on it twice.
Oh my gosh, when you were 9.
Yeah, that was part of the reason why I was so like terrified of just anything upside down.
That totally makes sense. Yeah, that's very okay. You have a lot more reason than I did. I never had anything happen to me like that. I was just afraid. So that happened when you were 9, and a few years later, your arm had healed up, of course, by then, and you were at Busch Gardens, and so you rode Loch Ness Monster. Your mom dragged you onto it. Now, by the way, do you still ride with your mom? I know you've got your big friend group with like Hunter and all like the local Thrills United Coaster Kids people, but like you still hang out with your mom at the parks and.
I do. It's a little more difficult now because she's a full-time job, so can't really go as often. But we're already planning like a trip to Dollywood for Thanksgiving. She still loves to go to the parks, so yeah.
Say the last part again.
I said she still loves to go to the parks.
She still loves to go to the parks. Got it.
Yeah,
now, have you been to Dollywood? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. When I was, I think, turning 17, like when we lived in Germany, she took me on like a little Germany coaster trip. So we did like 3 or 4 parks together.
Oh, nice. That's awesome. Awesome. So is this your first time going to Dollywood in like the holiday period?
No, I've only been there once before, but when I went, it was like mid-December. So
okay. Because I've been to Dollywood a bunch of times. Never have gone November, December. Never have gone for the holidays, but really would like to. Same thing with Silver Dollar City. I've not been.
Oh my gosh,
I've been before, but not that time of year. Have you been to Silver Dollar City during the holidays?
Yeah. Well, no. Only during the summer. But I really like to go.
Yeah. So I look forward to seeing your story and hearing what you have to say about. Well, actually, no. You said you've already been in December, so going to the loft script here, which is fine. But what do you think of Christmas at Dollywood? Holidays at Dollywood.
It was beautiful. It was just freezing cold. I was struggling. But it was so worth it. It was so pretty. I think like my favorite like whole part about that whole trip was on Lightning Rod's quad down. You could just look out and like see all the Christmas lights over the park, and it was amazing.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah, that is beautiful. I mean, that park, I love the Smoky Mountains. I love Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg. I love that whole area.
I do too.
Yeah, I like it better than Branson. I mean, not that Branson's bad, but I just think there's something special about Pigeon Forge and that
I agree.
That whole area about the Smoky Mountains and Now, you've been to Disneyland, of course, right?
In California?
Yeah.
No, actually.
You've not?
No, that's my number 1 bucket list park, but I haven't.
Oh, I could imagine if you haven't. Okay. I was just talking to a buddy of mine. Actually, I think we're going to have him on the podcast here this season. He's a big time parks fan, coasters, parks, theme parks. He and I get along well because we both are really passionate, not just about coasters, but about theme parks. Because those are two different things. And I know you are that way too. Another reason why I'm started talking to you. And he lives in California. Disneyland's his home park. And we were talking about which park, at least here in the US, has the best holiday, Christmas celebration, which is the most beautiful. And we both agree of the parks we've been to, because neither of us have been to Dollywood or Silver City during Christmas. That Disneyland has the best holidays. I mean, nothing in Disney World compares to it. Nothing as far as how beautiful. Yeah. So my recommendation to you is, for your first trip to Disneyland, if you want to have like the maxed out experience, go from like, early mid-November through beginning of January, like during that holiday period. You'll get Haunted Mansion Holiday, which is amazing. But then you'll get all the dressing for the holidays, all the lights, and like it's a small world. The facade of it is gorgeous at night during the holidays. It's the whole park is it's just amazing. So I'm going to Disneyland next month, so I'm not going to experience the holidays, but I've not been there in a couple of years, so I'm looking forward to it. But so I'm curious, once you get to go to Disneyland and do the holidays there, I'm curious what you think of that versus Dollywood. Because I don't know if I know anyone that's done both, like, again, during the holidays. But anyways, back on track. So Loch Ness Monster. So how did you feel when you got off of Loch Ness Monster? Like, how did you feel after conquering those fears?
I mean, I was not one of those people who was like, okay, like my fear of coasters is like, gone. I was still like a little nervous, and like gradually had to like kind of work my way up to like more intense rides. I remember the same day I rode Griffin, and I was like terrified of that too. But I remember like getting off, and I was like, okay, like it wasn't as bad as I thought, and I was definitely proud of myself and glad that I just did it.
Right. Now, obviously, because I know some of the parks you've been to and some of your favorites and all that the coasters you've been on since Loch Ness are obviously more intense and more inversions and blah, blah, blah. So while you didn't get over like all your fear from Loch Ness, it sounds like that was the worst of your fear, right? And that okay. So would you say, let's say you're going on a coaster this year that you've not been on before. Would you say you still have any fear, or do you think that's just excitement that you feel now?
I probably still would be scared of a few. I think X2 would intimidate me. Any of the roller coasters, so like Eugenica, even though it's very high on my bucket list, I think I'd still definitely like be a little nervous.
Right.
I rode King Ka in 2021, and I was terrified before that also.
Right. Sure.
So there's definitely still a few that would intimidate me, but I don't think I'd be like terrified.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And the ones you mentioned, especially X2, you mentioned King Ka, Top Dragster being similar. Those are the ones, I mentioned earlier that we never had Loch Ness Monster, but it's the again, those really tall ones or the really intense ones like X2 or Top Thrill, King Ka, that those are the ones we typically have people have told us they're afraid of, which makes sense.
I think for me it's more like flat rides that kind of scare me. I was like I did a sky coaster at Blood Kissimmee for the first time like a few months ago, and that one terrified me. It still scares me every time I go on.
No, you said Kissimmee, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I've been on one sky coaster in my life, the one they have at Six Flags Discovery Kingdom.
Okay.
And I think it's like a 150. It's not the tallest, obviously. We know that that's Kissimmee. And I just done that one. I loved it. I really enjoyed it. And I actually very coaster challenge related. Kim, who's the one of the other main producers of the show, and her son Jay, who also helps us with the show. They were visiting along with Jay's sister, Kim's other child, Lily. So the three of them were visiting here in Florida. This was earlier this year, like winter time. I think it was spring break, March, April. And we did a bunch of things together, but they wanted to do the sky coaster.
Mm-hmm.
And in Kissimmee, because it's the tallest one. So we decided Lily didn't want to go. So because she didn't go, I joined Jay and Kim. So I'd done it. Actually, I've only done it with two other people. It's always been two other people. So anyway, the three of us did it. And I wasn't afraid. I was like, okay, wow, we're high up here.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it. I mean, I'm not really afraid of heights. I'm aware of, there's like this thing that goes off in my head where it's like, okay, I'm really high up right now, but I'm like, I'm okay with it. I don't freak out. It's just like my mind is reminding me, yeah, you're really high up right now, so you want to be careful, but I don't freak out. So it's that kind of
Yeah, that's part of my thing. I've always kind of had a fear of heights. And
Oh yeah.
even like the slingshot at Icon Park. Like I'd go there with all my friends and they'd be like, come on, like get on. And I would never want to get on. So even the slingshot, I didn't ride one up until like April of this year. It was my first time on it. I was terrified, but now I love them. So
Okay, and which one did you ride in April?
um I did the Margaritaville one and then I did the other one on iDrive.
Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
you went with your friends, but you never did the one at Icon Park.
I actually did like a month ago.
Oh, you did fine. Okay, okay. Yeah, I had never done one of those before, and I remember going to the media. There was a media event. Okay, so this kind of goes back here. So this is going back to, what was it? December of 2021 is when they kind of soft opened
Yeah.
both that and the drop tower. And I didn't have a chance to make it over there during soft opening. So the first time I rode both attractions there was at the media event. Got invited to the media event, and actually um, he was working there. I'm sure, of course, Austin. Austin Rosanek, Amusement Insider, is a good friend of mine. He worked there, so he wasn't on the media list. So he's like, yeah, I'll go with you. Yeah, can I go with you as your plus one? So Austin joined me, and we, did the rides and everything. I had never done a slingshot before. And I was like, I'm at the media event. I should do what they have here. And I wasn't afraid of them. they're upcharges. They're always upcharges when they're at parks. And it's like, why would I do an upcharge when I can just go do, the things that are here? That's why I only have done like one sky coaster ever,
Yeah.
So anyway, so I did it, and I I got the video, and posted on social media. And people were remarking, it's like, Andrew, you weren't scared. You don't look scared. Like, how could you not be scared? And I wasn't scared. I wasn't. And I had never been on one before. I was so calm. And, I believe personally that as we face our fears in life, coasters and other things, but as we go through life and we face our fears successfully, mind you, like where we conquer our fears, we get better at not being afraid of things moving forward. It's sort of like building strength. So anyways, I think that's what's happened to me. But yeah, so okay, so you're afraid of flats, but like you've been able to conquer them too, clearly.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's good. So you got off of Loch Ness Monster, and you were still afraid of some coasters, but you never were as afraid.
Yeah.
So it helped you really. So because of Loch Ness Monster, you were able to step up and do bigger rides, basically, right? Okay. So can you think of anything else that, by riding Loch Ness Monster, by conquering that fear, that did that conquering of that fear have any other impacts on you?
Not that one. Actually, the one that like the fear that I conquered that really did help me was Terran at Phantasialand. That was another one I was really, really scared of when I first rode it. But my first ride on that was actually when Logan came and visited. So with Logan Joyner, that was my first ride ever on it. And after that one, I really kind of started to like get over my fears, and like I think it was really Logan and his channel, like after I got involved with that really helped me, like in life in general. I did cheer. I was a flyer, so like the person who gets like thrown up in the air.
Oh
And
yeah.
I was always like, terrified of doing like the more extreme stunts. But after I got involved with Coaster Kids and Thrills United, that kind of really helped me, like especially in cheer, and like not letting my fears hold me back. Because if I wanted to be on the varsity team, I had to do the more extreme stunts and stuff. So that really, really helped me, and I made varsity. So
That's awesome. And first of all, awesome you made varsity, but also awesome considering what you told me earlier, Marina, that you were willing to do that, because I'm not a cheerleader, but I've seen enough cheer squads and stuff. Seen movies about them and all that too. I love any kind of performance entertainment. So, and cheer is certainly one of those. So that given your role, what you did on the cheer squad, and given what happened to you when you were 9, where you were doing your own stunt, if you will, gymnastics and all that, and dance, where you flipped and went and broke your arm, and that was under your own control, and then now you're putting your life in other people's hands, perhaps your friends, but still not you're not in control, and you're doing these extreme stunts with them, your life even potentially depending upon them, and you were willing to do that. That is awesome, and that shows that you've been able to conquer fear in life, be able to get to that point. That's fantastic.
Yeah. It was definitely rough because for a long time my fears did hold me back, and that ultimately held me down in like how far I could go with my cheer. So I was on JV for a few years before I made varsity, because I was so scared of like doing those stunts. But once I stopped letting my fear kind of hold me back was when I really excelled and was able to reach my goal.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also don't give yourself more credit. Like don't necessarily assume that, because of your fears that you didn't get onto varsity till later. I mean, it's not necessarily easy to get onto varsity, period, even for someone that's not scared. So yeah, it's a challenge. It's the ultimate, in high school, certainly where you can get to. So that's fantastic. So you mentioned that, with Logan coming out to Germany and you're writing Terrence for the first time. So you wrote Terrence for the first time with Logan.
Yeah.
Okay, great. So when was that?
It was 2018 in June.
Okay, so only a couple years after Terran opened. Okay.
Yeah.
So now I know you've mentioned 2 fears so far. You've mentioned, and it's very common, inversions and height. Terran doesn't have either of those. So what is it about Terran that intimidated you?
It was the launches. Like I had never really been on like coasters that fast, It just like the sound of the launches, like
Oh yeah.
Intimidating.
Oh yeah, they are so loud. I get it why you would be scared, but I'm assuming you, like most enthusiasts now, we're at with those launches and all that, is the sounds are like music to your ears, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's how it is for me. Yeah, I mean, I was even able to, when I've been to Fantasyland, like get that on video, and people are like, oh my god, those LSMs, they sound so loud, and yeah, fun. And we'll talk more about Terran later, of course, but anyways, okay, it's very, very, very interesting. So forget about fear, like going beyond fear, just in terms of your enjoyment of the parks, of coasters, how would you say that parks and coasters have had a significant positive impact on you in any possible way?
Yeah, there's so much I can like say for this, but I think the main thing is like the people that I've met through this hobby. Since like I joined Coaster Kids, I've met some of my best friends and some of my favorite people, and it's really helped me like figure out which direction that I want to go in my life. I actually yesterday, I changed my major in college. I was a psych major, and I just changed to theme park and attractions management. So,
nice. Congratulations.
Yeah, I'm to work in the industry now. And it's crazy because psych is what I wanted to do forever, but I feel like my heart is just kind of set on like working at the parks. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Now, are you going to UCF or somewhere else?
I'm going to UCF.
Oh, so you got the whole Rosen thing. I mean, UCF's great for listeners that aren't familiar. UCF is an acronym for University of Central Florida. It's one of the premier universities, actually one of the largest universities in the country, but also one of the premier universities to go to for theme park hospitality management, to be able to major in things like that, like Marina, like what you just said, you changed your major to. That's awesome. I know a number of people that have gone through the hospitality program there, and they speak pretty highly of it. So I wish you luck. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Of course. So I wanted to touch upon something you mentioned earlier. I meant to get back to it, but we were going off on different tangents. So you mentioned that, one of the coasters that has scared you before in general has been things like X2 and Ijanika and whatnot. Now, have you been on any of the Aero 40s yet?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
Aside from like the SNS ones, I haven't been on like
those aren't
the
the same
ones. Yeah, no.
I've been on all 3 Aero 40s. They are not the same as the SNS ones. Yeah. So, I know you lived in Japan. Now, I'm guessing you lived like near Okinawa? Okay, so you were on the other end of Honshu from Fuji-Q. So you've never been to Fuji-Q, or?
No, I was too young to really like go to any of the parks. I moved when I was 5, but I did go to Tokyo Disney and Disney Sea.
Oh,
That's right.
Nice. Now you only were what, 5 years old when you went to those parks?
Yeah.
See, do
So
you
I didn't
remember
really,
them at all?
not really, and I didn't really like ride anything.
Oh, okay. Now have you been back there since or no?
No, I really want to though. That's like next on my bucket list is a Japan trip. So I
Okay,
really
so I
hope.
know how much you love Disney. I know how much you love
Mhm.
Disney. You need to go. I've been to every Disney park on the planet. It's one of my favorite flexes that I'm proud of.
Oh
And
my
yeah, no, I love, again, I love coasters, but big time, of course. But as much as I love coasters, I love theme parks, dark rides, the theming, the immersion,
yeah.
the shows, the entertainment, all everything. And we'll get more into that later when we talk about some of the stuff that we've been, both enjoyed in Germany and things like that. But all the Disney parks, they each have their strengths and weaknesses. The the Japanese parks are just incredible. I mean, yes, Pirates of the Caribbean, Battle for the Sunken Treasure, the full name. The Pirates ride at Shanghai is incredible, is absolutely incredible. And yeah, they don't have that anywhere else. But they have things like Journey to the Center of the Earth, which I think is the best implementation of the test track tech, and just the beauty of that park. Even the 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea is, I think, one of the best of Disney's attempts to simulate going underwater type rides. Because they've done a few of those, like Nemo and things like that. But no, there's such great rides in that resort. What I love about the resort is the locals, they are so both passionate, like say Californians are about Disneyland, but very respectful. They don't cause problems like some of the crazy people in California do. But they just love that park, and there's no litter, and all the workers are so passionate about their jobs there. I mean, there's
Yeah.
those. Yeah.
I actually
Sorry.
remember a story my mom always tells me about, like when we went there
Yeah.
to Tokyo Disney. She bought me these like brand new like white like tennis shoes. And I wore them around the park all day. And she said like after we were done with the day at the park, she checked them and the bottoms were like spotless, like they were still
Yeah.
white.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that doesn't surprise me. Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah. Yeah, no, they're great parks. So hopefully you'll get to go back to them at some point. I'm
I
sure you will.
really hope
I'm sure you
so.
will. Yeah, yeah. And when you get back there, I'm sure you will go to like Fuji-Q, amongst other places. Fuji-Q is a great park, and yeah, Ijunaika is fantastic. So hopefully it's still running well. I've not been there. This shows you my age. I have not been there since 2007. So yeah, you were like what, a couple of years old then, I guess. But yeah. So, but anyway, I need to get back to Japan, but that's another story. But anyways, so next few questions are fun questions, and I think this is when we're going to start to get into some of the more interesting topics here. The first of all, well, how many coasters have you been on? What is your count up to?
I think I'm at 309 now.
Nice. Considering you're pretty young, that's a good number. That's pretty high.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So of the 300 plus coasters you've been on, thinking about re-rides, all of that, what would you say has been the craziest moment that you've had on a coaster?
Oh my gosh, I've had a lot of like insane moments. I can't even think of like a top one.
Well, let me help you to answer it. Normally, the way people answer this question is not so much, just having an amazing night ride or sunset ride or just, running really fast or whatever the case. It's normally something weird that happens. A lot of times people talk about getting evac'd or seeing a cell phone flying in front of them and catching it, or, yeah. So does that help frame the question?
The one story that comes to mind was the
Yeah.
first time I rode Twisted Timbers, which was actually my first RMC.
Oh.
I was sitting in the back row and someone's hat flew off in the front row, and the people right in front of us caught the hat.
Oh wow.
So in the on-ride photo, you could see like the hat like floating through the air, but they caught the hat. So yeah.
That's cool. That's crazy. Yeah. I mean, I've heard these stories where, I mean, sometimes people see something flying in front of them. Oftentimes it's a cell phone, which is a lot more dangerous than a hat. But still, and it doesn't hit anyone, but they don't catch it. But then these stories where people are able to catch it, because you think about it, on a coaster, you're distracted, which is a good thing. And it's part of how we can be mindful when we're riding coasters, because we can't really think about a whole lot. We're just caught up in all the physics of everything and how fast things are going by. But with all that going on, to be able to focus and be able to catch something. That's just wild.
I know, yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. So 309 coasters. I already know the answer, and I love the answer. But for our audience, tell us what your favorite coaster is.
It is Terran at Phantasialand, which I'm sure you know if you know me, because I talk about it probably too much. Um, but yeah, it just maybe it's not the best coaster per se, but I like to rank coasters based on like my experience on them, kind of how much fun I've had. Um, and I don't think anything can compare to that one for me or even come close. Um, I just like everything about that ride, like the theming, how immersive it is, the launches, like the soundtrack, just everything about it combined. Like I love it so much. And yeah, I don't think anything can come close for me.
Yeah, well, you won't get any argument from me. As you know, it is my number one as well. It became my number one during my second visit to Phantasialand. Both visits that I've had so far were both last year. And again, no argument for me. It is my number one as well. Now, I personally, and there's other people out there that I know rank Terran as their number one, but another friend, mutual friend of ours I mentioned earlier, that ranks Terran number one. And I have a lot of respect for this person, especially in terms of his ranking of coasters, because he's very technical about it. And that's Austin from Amusement Insider. And he came out with a video, I don't know, a few months ago, kind of, I don't know if he had done it before, but at least if he had, it was updated, but it was his top 25 coasters. And he doesn't just name them and show videos of them. He goes through the technicals, he goes through the reasons. And like Austin and like yourself, I rank rides, coasters, not just on the physics, not just on the elements and the height, the length. It's the theming that matters. You mentioned the music, for example, of Terran. And yeah, I've been to Disney parks. I've been out, most of the Universal parks. I've been in even the one in Singapore. And some of these really high quality parks, Dollywood, Silverdale City, that have onboard audio and on some rides at least, and immersive theming. But the level to which Phantasialand takes theming is like no other park in the world.
I agree.
and that is both visual theming as well as auditory, the soundtrack. And actually, again, Austin, we've had on the podcast, he was on early season one. We had a special episode where we interviewed him and talked all about Velocicoaster. It had just opened. This was in 2021, our first season. And, he was the perfect person for me to chat with about Velocicoaster because, he had been studying it long before anyone knew a coaster was being built. He would document the whole thing because he did his concept POVs, so good at making those concept POVs. But anyway, so Austin, when I first met him, it was actually on Twitter long before he moved here from New York. And he told me, he's like, hey, do you know about Emascore? I'm like, huh? And because he's really big into music, as I am. And I have him to thank because I now have him Apple Music, like all their albums. I have a whole playlist for them. I have two playlists actually for Emascore. I have the main, just general one, and then I have one just for the Phantasialand music. And they do amazing theme park scoring, just great music. But the work that they do for Phantasialand is the best work that they do, in my opinion. So good. I listened to that playlist of the 3 albums that I have from Phantasialand. I don't have the Africa one yet, but I have Klugheim, of course, for Terran. I've got Rookburg, of course. That is the best work they've ever done, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah, it's so good. And then I have Chiapas, which is also fantastic. And I listen to it all the time. But yeah, that music, when you're, going around the curve out of the station, heading up to the launch track, and that triumphant music.
Yeah.
The theme of Terran.
The last time I got on it, I moved in 2021, so it was still shut down. So I went back last November, and that was the first ride I got on it in over 2 years. Then when I rounded the corner and heard that, I'd started crying because it's just it's the most beautiful thing to me. I think the happiest moments of my life have been on that coaster. That song is my ringtone on my phone.
Oh, I love it. Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, no, these coasters are emotional. I mean, the most emotional responses I've ever had to coasters are actually the two I can think of that are the highest, if you will, are at Phantasialand. It's Terran and Fly.
Mhm.
That dark ride section and Fly, which I won't go into more detail on because people may be spoiled on it. But you know what I'm talking about. In the beginning, that after Dispatch is the music, the Fly main song, if you will, the main theme, that Dispatch music and everything. So it's so incredible.
It's beautiful too.
Yeah.
Did you get a night ride on it while you were there?
Yes, I've gotten night rides on both, and it's fantastic at night because of how Rookburg is lit up with the blue and red lights.
Like, I got a night ride in the front row, and it was the same thing. Like, it was so beautiful. I think I like cried after it. It's just that park is incredible, and their Christmas event is like by far the most beautiful thing I've ever seen. Like, I have so much love for that park.
Oh yeah. I did get to ride Fly, I think once at night. During and we'll talk more about their Christmas event because that needs to be discussed. But yeah, for sure. But going back to Terran. So Terran's your number one. Not surprising at all, given now what I know about you, and again something we share. It's just I know a lot of people that are listening that have not been to Germany, or at least have not been to Phantasialand. You might find it hard to believe, but because it doesn't have inversions and it's not high off the ground. But it basically, Terran, in my opinion, is the perfection of what Intamin did with Maverick. Yeah, and again, even without inversions. I mean, Terran would be great with inversions, sure. I mean, it's not like it would be a bad coaster if it had those, but it doesn't need them. In my opinion, it just doesn't need them. The elements it has instead, the airtime, the positives, the sense of speed, and it's just amazing. Okay, so enough about Terran for now. What would you say on the other end of the spectrum has been the coaster that you've least liked? Maybe a rough coaster or something really bad. What was it?
I would have to say Wildcat at Lake Compounce.
Okay, all right. I've never been to Lake Compounce, but what was bad about Wildcat?
I rode it in 2021. I think it got retracked like not long before. But oh my gosh, it felt like it like jackhammered up and down like 6 feet every time it moved. It was just awful. Like I was in shock of like how like rough it was. I had never experienced anything like that before.
Ooh, okay. That's now.
No,
go ahead.
It was a one and done. I left and went to Taco Bell after.
Okay, gotcha. Oh, interesting. Okay, all right. Yeah, I mean, it sounds pretty bad. That sounds pretty bad. Now, I'm assuming you've been to Movie Park Germany, right? So you think it's worse than Bandit?
I do. I don't love Bandit either, but I think with Bandit, I heard so much like negative stuff about it that I was expecting it to be a little bit worse than it was. Whereas Wildcat, I hadn't really heard as many people talk about it, so I didn't really know what to expect. So that I guess kind of surprised me more in a negative way.
Right. No, that totally makes sense. I mean, kind of what people tell us, good or bad, about something in life, whether it be, a coaster, a park, a movie, a TV show, whatever it may be, it'll affect how much we like it or don't like it in the end, because we're kind of biased in one direction or the other. So I totally get what you're saying. Totally get it. So, all right. Well, thank you for sharing some of those favorites. And again, I know we'll get back to some of the more Phantasialand stuff later, but before we get to that, so talk to us a little bit about, what your most meaningful or favorite moments in terms of being part of Coaster Kids and Thrill United have been.
I mentioned this earlier, but it's definitely like the friends that I've made along the way. They've become like my best friends in life, and I really don't know where I'd be if I didn't join that channel. So I'm very, very thankful for, all the opportunities I've had. And aside from my friends, Coaster Kids Day, when I got to host that at Busch Gardens, Tampa, I love helping people. So it was really, really cool to have everyone come together and help kids conquer their fears, because I have been there before, so I know what it's like. And I know all the amazing things that it can lead to when you do conquer your fears. So it was really cool getting to be a part of that.
That's awesome. So I didn't realize you did that. So when was that? How many years ago?
This was 2019.
2019. Okay. And so you being the local rep, you hosted that event, you ran that event?
Yeah. So I actually lived in Germany at the time. But since I was going to be here for the summer, I hosted it with Hunter.
Oh, nice. And I know Hunter's one of your closest friends. One of the ones you mentioned earlier that you've made through through being part of Coaster Kids and Thrills United. Yeah, Hunter's a great guy. He's I think him being part of the same groups, has been great for him too. I mean, I've never heard anyone really speak ill of being a part of Logan's organizations. I mean,
Yeah.
Logan has wonderful parents that have helped him, basically survive and basically not just survive, but triumph over his difficulties that have been facing, being autistic and so forth, and how much he's changed. Amazing. So having those parents, having coasters, and having this hobby, and now he works in the industry, and the transformation he's gone through is just incredible. And all that positivity is that's part of that organization. And like I said, we've partnered with Coaster Kids and Thrills United because we have a similar mission about facing fear. And so you ran that event for Coaster Kids in 2019, so 4 years ago at Busch Gardens, and helping people face their fears. So how many people were at the event?
We actually had a pretty big turnout. I don't know like an exact number, but I think it was around like 24.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's great. So how many people that were there were not actually part of Coaster Kids that were there to hopefully face their fears and were trying to come out of their shells?
Well, nobody else that was there besides Hunter was like part of the channel. They all just kind of heard about the event like through the channel. So they like came to like meet up.
Okay, so basically everyone was there to like meet you guys, and so did you have? Can you remember any like maybe one or two stories from that day? Maybe not the names of the people, of course, doesn't matter, but I mean, a couple individuals where they were able to really conquer something because they were there.
Yeah. I remember there was a little kid and he rode his first B&M. So
Nice.
I think you're familiar with like the Be Brave Challenge segment on their channel.
Oh yeah, very.
Yeah, we had like a few of those, and I did one that day on Falcon's Fury because I was terrified of Falcon's Fury.
Understandable. Fear of heights. I totally get it. Yep.
I got to conquer something that day.
So okay, that's great. I'm glad you guys had such great positivity. That's all I expect. That's awesome. That's amazing. So in terms of you conquering your fear, another part of your fear, that fear of heights on Falcon's Fury, I can tell you, and to help you get over some of the anxiety you spoke of earlier about going on an Arrow 40 coaster, because I've been on all of them, that how you kind of rotate and face down, that's very much how the first drop is on the 40 coasters.
Yeah.
And it's my favorite drop on any coaster. It's not the tallest. It's not beyond 90 degrees or, and all that kind of craziness we see in some coasters these days. But just how you're on your back and then you're flipped forward and then just staring into nothingness. I love being at the front, going up backwards, but being at the front, if you will, and then being the first to face down because you don't see anything. There's nothing below.
I can't even imagine like how insane that sensation must be. Like,
oh, it is. It's amazing. I've ridden that ride so many times now. Each time it still gets me flipping over like that. So anyway, so now you'll have a sense of, okay, well, I've kind of done this already on Falcon's Fury. Yeah. So anyways, so all right, I promised we would get back to this. So you consider yourself to be a fangirl of Fantasyland?
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and that park was your home park for many years. Now, taking a step back from, Karen being your favorite and all that, just looking at the park as a whole, what is it about Fantasyland that makes it so special to you?
There's like so much I could go into about that park, but I think like the one thing that really separates it from everything else is like the charm that park has. I feel like the only other park that's like come close in that respect for me is Silver Dollar City. But I think just the fact that it's like independently owned, it's so like special and not something you really see these days. Like I feel like so many parks have just become so corporate and like the focus is more on like making money than the overall guest experience. But I feel like Fantasyland just like tries so hard in everything that they do to make it so like immersive, and everything that they do, I think they're like the best at. Like for example, their water rides, I think they have the best water rides out of any park. I think that they have some of the best coasters out of any park. Even like the food is some of the best I've ever had at parks, and the theming. And one other thing I also really like is how like the park is so small. I think it's only like 32 acres, like in its entirety, or 50, 52, something like that.
Something like that, yeah.
But it's a tiny park. But they make it seem so big. But like it'll only take you a few minutes to walk from like one side to the other, which is like kind of insane to me.
Oh
But
yeah.
I think they just do like such a fantastic job with everything that they do. From like their operations, like just everything.
Yep. Yep. I agree with everything you just said. If we were, messaging or texting or whatnot, I would be doing that 100 emoji in response to that. So totally agree. And yeah, it's the fact that they have all of that in one park. Yeah, it's, like you mentioned that they have some of the best water rides, if not the best water rides. I agree. River Quest is fantastic. Honestly, it is not my favorite of all of the rapids rides, but it is one of my top. I think it's in my top 5. But I think Grizzly River Run at California Adventure, which I know you've not been on yet, is
That's
the best.
fair.
Along with Mystic River Falls, I think those are kind of have you been on Mystic River Falls?
I
love that bloom section at the end. It's so wild. But
I also love Popeye and Pluto's
oh yeah,
Islands of Adventure.
Oh yeah, that's in my top 5 as well, for sure.
It's my favorite.
So good, so good. But River Quest, regardless, doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter because Chiapas exists.
Exactly.
Chiapas is
right on my desk right now.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I remember talking to, I'm assuming you know Adam Torres.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's another friend of mine. He's a acknowledged, if you will, log flume enthusiast.
Yeah.
We talk about log flumes quite a bit, and I love log flumes, and yeah, he's very passionate about Chiapas, understandably, that ride. And again, the theming, it's got the crazy lighting and a couple indoor sections, the music. Chiapas' soundtrack is so fantastic and so fun and so upbeat, and it's so good. And that drop is the backward section and just everything. It's so, there are other flumes that go backwards, but just all of that put together, it's such an amazing ride. So good. And of course, it's an Intamin, which makes it even better. So, but you also mentioned about the food. Yeah, the food. Some of the best Mexican food I've ever had is at that. I'm not talking about like the quick service one up top, like above Chiapas. I'm talking about the one that's down below in Mexico. Right, it's right across from the skating theater in Mexico, and it's like a table service Mexican restaurant.
Is it like the Tacano one?
I think that's it. I remember. I think that's
okay. I ate there one year for my birthday.
Yeah, the food's so good, and it was cheap too. The food's not expensive.
The food there is very affordable. It has my favorite theme park food item of all time, which is the churros. I tell everyone.
Oh yeah.
Every time someone goes, I'm like, you have to get the churros.
And then in Klugheim, I forget the actual German name I'm sure you know, but basically the German pizzas, those flatbreads, those are so good.
The Flammkuchen.
Yes, that's it. I can never pronounce that name. I knew you would know it, of course, living in Germany. The food's so good. And then you mentioned that it's not a big park; it's landlocked. It's like basically Phantasialand. If people that run Knott's Berry Farm, we're very close friends on the show with Jeff Tucker, who's one of the managers at Knott's Berry Farm. If he were to say to me, "Hey, Andrew, we want to put a new ride in, but we don't have any room here. We're surrounded by housing development." Like Jeff, you have it great compared to Phantasialand. So, because they were both in similar situations, but it's much more intense there at Phantasialand. They are totally locked in there. But, and maybe Knott's Berry Farm, as they continue to grow, because they're a great park, one of my favorite Cedar Fair parks. Have you been to Knott's Berry Farm? I'm guessing not, because
I've never been to the West Coast.
Yeah, I've never been to Cal. Okay. Yeah, you need to go to Knott's Berry Farm, because it is the one park in the Cedar Fair chain that I consider to be a theme park. All the other ones, Cedar Point, Kings Island, they're not theme parks. They're amusement parks. Yeah. They have some theming, but Knott's has incredible theming, at least in some parts of the park. But it's landlocked. But, as Knott's continues to grow and add more rides, et cetera, and have ambitions, they could look to Phantasialand and the amazing construction that they do. The building rides on top of rides, and how Rake and interacts with Terran, and like I know there's one section of the park, I think it may be Rake, that's it's like intertwines with Black Mamba or something like that. There's like multiple rides from different lands that interact with each other because they're all on top of each other. Right?
It's absolutely insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy. It's crazy. And it's so, I mean, they use all the space they can. So yeah, and then it's a very charming park. Like when I'm there, I'm in my happy place. Yeah, just because you got the visual theming, the incredible, Rookburg, of course, but even besides Rookburg, I mean, Klugheim is amazing. The, other lands are amazing. Like China, Africa, they're all so beautiful. And then you have the music, again, that Imascore, the soundtracks playing in the lands, on the rides. The rides there, like Black Mamba, Terran, and Fly, have awesome dispatch sequences because of the music, because that music is so good. The lighting is great too with Black Mamba. It's all that stuff. And so one thing I'm curious you did not mention, and I'm curious to get your take on it, is what is your opinion on the entertainment, the shows at Phantasialand?
I actually never I never watched them much. I did more when I was little. But now that my time there is kind of limited, I kind of just try to get around to the rides as much as I can.
Right.
But I've heard great things about the shows, and they have I think it's like a light show during their winter event, and I did see that, and they had another one in Rookburg too, and those were both amazing.
Yes, the Pulse of Rookburg. That's one of the music they use during Pulse is on the Rookburg soundtrack. And the lighting and all that they do, and what's cool is, and this may sound weird being a coaster podcast, I want to kind of frame this. The Pulse show, which is done multiple times nightly at Rookburg, is a fairly short show. It's only a few minutes, but during those few minutes, and again, keep in mind it's a very short show, they do stop dispatching Fly, so they don't have that that noise from the coaster, and again, because it's a short show, I think that's totally fine. They stop dispatching. And then they resume very quickly afterwards. It's not like how Kings Island stops running the Beast and other coasters for hours, because of the fireworks show. It's not disruptive like that. But yeah, the Pulse show's great. What is it? Temple de Fuego is the name of the show they're running. At least the one they ran last year. The light show you mentioned, like by Chiapas there in Mexico. That's the show you were talking about, right?
No, I actually don't think I've seen that one. I know they had like a short one in Rookburg, which is one I was talking about. And then during their winter event in like the Berlin area, they had like another like little thing.
Oh, yeah, with the fountains.
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so you've not seen the one in Mexico.
No, I didn't even know that.
Oh, okay. So obviously you come here. So I know you still go to Germany, but now you live mainly here in Florida, right? Okay, so you've seen Ignite, for example, at SeaWorld. Right?
Actually, I have not. I don't go there.
Oh, real? Oh my God. Oh, well, it's still something you need to go. Basically, it's every night. It's amazing. It's only like 10, 15 minute show. It's amazing. They have amazing pyro in that show. I won't get into anything else. But anyway, I'll leave out details as well here so you can be surprised. But the Temple de Fuego show, I'm assuming they'll run it again this year and for the foreseeable future. It's got really good pyro. I'll just say that it's the main show they do at night there in Phantasialand. But anyways, so have you seen Winter Wonderland on Ice, the ice skating show they do at SeaWorld during the Christmas celebration?
I don't believe so.
Okay. Are you not a big show person in general?
I'm usually one of those people who rides the rides during the show. So like
okay, got it. I get it. I love my night rides. So and all these shows are at night, but I love shows too. And I would say that I know your time is limited now when you go to Germany, but if you're there, whenever you're there, try to see the shows. They're very good. I think Europa Park, their shows are maybe a little bit better.
Yeah.
Have you seen any of the shows at Europa Park by chance? Or
not in a long time.
Okay.
I don't know, like the recent one.
Yeah, if you can see the shows at both those parks, just try maybe one show, a visit, or maybe something like that. They're fantastic. They're it's what you would expect.
Yeah, send me recommendations for sure.
Yeah, it's what you'd expect out of those parks. So I'm assuming then you've not done Fantissima then at Phantasialand.
No.
Okay, because that does not come into conflict with missing out on rides because it's after the park closes.
Yeah.
It's incredible show. It's 4 hour show. It's wild. Some of the best entertainment I've seen. Yeah, it's dinner theater. So it's like they serve 4 courses, and in between each course, they do one of the acts of the show.
What? I
Yeah,
didn't know that.
yeah, it runs about $100. It's not
Yeah.
expensive considering it includes dinner.
Mhm.
And the entertainment, it's singing, dancing, acting. It's got illusion magic in it, quick change, wardrobe which I consider to be magic. They do contortion, but it's all very high quality. And there's something else they do in that show, which I will not say what it is, because I don't want to. The number of people I've told about this is very small. I won't say it on the podcast. There's something they do in that show that will completely knock your socks off. It's a technology thing, and it's like you'll know it when you see it. It's like, what is going on here right now? And it's one of those kind of wow moments. The show is fantastic. It's the best show I've ever seen. It's amazing. It's amazing. Better than like Broadway shows. It's incredible. So do see that when you have a chance. It's the kind of thing we have to book it in advance.
Yeah.
You know, it's a small, intimate theater. It's all tables. You're sitting next to dinner theater. And I think they hold maybe 100 people in there or something like that. So maybe a little more than that. But anyways, okay. So, but regardless of the shows, obviously there, I can understand all the reasons why you love Phantasialand. So I get why it's so special. Now, how would you compare, obviously you spend a lot of time in Florida. You're living mainly in Florida nowadays. How would you compare Phantasialand to parks like the Walt Disney World Park, Universal Orlando parks?
Yeah, so I obviously love Disney and Universal a lot, but I think Fantasyland's just always gonna have the slight edge, because like kind of like I said earlier, I just don't think anything can compare to like the charm of that park. I love Disney and Universal so much, but I feel like it's just changed a lot since, I started going there growing up. I feel like it's kind of sad. It's just become like a little bit more corporate. Like I don't feel like the magic or the charm like I used to. Whereas at Fantasyland, that's just like never really changed.
Yeah, I get it. I totally get it. I grew up going to Disney World because I grew up on the East Coast. Universal, I didn't go till later, but certainly I live 5 minutes away from there. I've been there many, 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 many times. And in my opinion, Islands of Adventure, if we just look at individual parks, Islands of Adventure is the best park in the U.S. and it's second only to Phantasialand for me. In terms of theme parks, I don't consider amusement parks like Cedar Point. I don't rank them in the same way. Just in terms of theme parks, again, Phantasialand number one, and then Islands. But then the Universal Orlando as a resort is such a strong resort. I think it's better than Disney World. It's just so up there. But I love Disney World too. But I agree with you. The corporate and all of the how complicated it is to go to Disney World, the reservations, and you can't hop until 2 p.m. and the virtual queues. And I miss the Disney, of the past.
It kind of seems like they focus like a little bit less on the guest experience now.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to go back to the paper fast pass system. And just being able to run. Yeah, you had to run all over the place to get but it was kind of fun. And, you grab all your friends' tickets and, sure. Or even just don't have Fast Pass anymore. Don't have Lightning Lane anymore. And that'll make have you seen the documentary from Defunctland about the Fast Pass system?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so good. And it makes such a case for just don't have a system. But Phantasialand, they actually have a quick queue system. A lot of people don't know that for certain rides. I've not used it. But, aside from that, it's like you said, it's not a corporate park. There's no IP. There's no IP there. And, whereas Disney's putting all this IP in the parks, which can be a good thing. Tron, Guardians are great. But, just having no IP, it's just there's a wonderful imaginary place that, it's these properties that don't exist in the real world.
And like prices are still like consistent and affordable. Like it's almost like it used to be like when I started going, whereas Disney is like tripled in price since I started going. Like it's barely affordable anymore. Like my family used to go like 3 times a year, and they don't go at all. I only go because I have a pass, but I would never buy a day ticket there anymore. It's just
yeah, like when I'm going to California next month. going mainly for haunt events, but I'm going to go to Disneyland because I haven't been there in a couple of years. And yeah, I don't have a pass. I don't, they don't even sell the Premier Pass anymore. I used to have that. I've had that a couple of years over the years because I would go to California and Florida for different reasons, both places. But buying tickets, oh my God, like you said, it's so expensive. It's crazy. But yeah, people, because I went to Fantasyland, I went to Europe in general for fun, for vacation twice last year, October and then December. And I went to a lot of parks. And people my social media posts, and people would message me, and they could not believe how cheap it is. The park tickets are so cheap. And what I've tried to explain to people is one of the main reasons for that is they don't have the insurance requirements that we have here in the US. They don't have to have insurance policies, and there's not as much regulation that the US parks have to deal with, and bureaucracy and the corporate, and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, the parks are just run there so efficiently without all these extra stuff that they can be inexpensive. Yeah,
exactly. You don't see like all these upcharges at like parks like Fantasyland, and even their like quick queue system. You never need to use it. I went on like a Saturday in the summer, and like if Terran was still like a 20-minute wait. Like the operations are never bad. Like you'll never need to buy it. Whereas like Disney on a crowded day, you might want to like splurge.
Yep. Yeah. Like I said, the efficient operations over there. I mean, they really, Fantasyland, Europa Park, all these great parks, they are run so well. And, the people, they take their job seriously, and you just don't have those issues. Yeah. I mean, like I said, I've not used the quick queue system there either. And I've been there when it's busy, but the lines move. So now one last question I want to ask you about Fantasyland. This is a little bit self-serving because I'm planning a trip, hopefully, depending upon how things go, for this fall, or kind of fall winter. So I know that you've been to what I consider to be, let me take a step back. So I'm assuming Brett Bezant, right? Met Brett. So he's another friend of mine. So he's from the UK, now lives here in Florida, but has been to Europe, the parks in Europe, a lot. Before I went to Fantasyland for the first time last fall in October, he was giving me advice and talking about it, because he loves that park so much. And he was telling me, he's like, Andrew, I know you're going in October. You should go during Winter Charm. You should go, go during the winter event. It is the best theme park event I've ever been to. Yes. So I went in October, and I love not only Fantasyland, I loved Europa Park. I'd never been there either. And those two right away became two in my top 5. Again, Fantasyland being my number 1 theme park. Europa Park, I think, is number 5. And I loved it so much. And, I'd done some other parks there too, but I love those 2 parks especially. I'm like, okay, I'm going back to go see the Christmas events, the holiday events at those parks, and do some others. And I wound up going back in December, between Christmas and New Year's, the busiest time, I know, but I had that time off from work. And I had a magical Christmas that trip. One of the new parks I went to was Wallaby, Belgium. Yeah. No, not Wallaby, Belgium. Plopsaland, excuse me. I went to Wallaby, Belgium my first trip. So in December, I went to Plopsaland for the first time. And the park was dead on Christmas Day. And I rode Ride to Happiness like 20 plus times. It was amazing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it was amazing. And that was the first park, one of the first parks I did that trip. But then I spent 3 days later on in that trip, the middle of the week, at Fantasyland. Incredible, because Brett was right. That is the best theme park event, period. The park is gorgeous.
I have one event over that. That is a very close second.
Which is the one over it?
Halloween Horror Nights.
Okay, I do love HHN. But no, I'm sorry. I mean, the night rides on Terran alone that you can only get during Winter Charm. That's for me. I respect the HHN.
I'm the hugest HHN fanatic. Like when it's going, I'm there every single night of the event. I'm a huge
HHN fan. Like I said, I live 5 minutes away. I've got my frequent fear pass, and I'll be there as much as I can. I'll be traveling a lot during those months, September and October. But when I'm home, I'll be there pretty much every night. Absolutely. And I love it because friends come to visit during that time because of HHN and going with them. And, I already have been through all the mazes, all the houses, 5 times or 10 times. I'm like, oh yeah, you're going to have to do this. And I can't wait to see the reaction of this. And like last year, my favorite thing to do was taking friends in there, visiting from out of town or wherever. And I'm like, okay, when we go through Dead Man's Pier, you're going to have a wow moment towards the end. You know what I'm talking about? The boat. Yeah, I was, I love that event so much. And I totally respect where you're coming from. But for me, it's Wintertraum. And I just, the fact that they actually make real snow every day and and then, like I said, the decorations, but the lights, the special shows. I know you haven't seen like the indoor shows, the skating show and the other, they have like a Cirque style show there and things like that. Great shows that they do just for that event. But the night rides, the ultimate is those night rides. So good. Oh, glue wine was good too. I never tried glue wine before. That was good. But those night rides and flying, especially Karen, just
it's definitely the most beautiful thing like I've ever seen.
And the way Taryn lights up, the underlighting to the boost launch and the beautiful. So amazing, so beautiful. Yeah. So the question I wanted to ask you, because I know you've been to that event, how many times have you been to Wintertraum?
Probably at least 10. Like I made it a point to try to go like every year while I lived there.
Oh wow. Okay. So the last couple years, like when did you live there until?
Until 2021. So I lived there from 2009 to 2021.
Okay, but obviously 2020, especially that didn't happen. But so like from like 2016 Taryn opened, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for a few years while you were still living there, 2016, 17, 18, 19, and then 21. So like 5-6 years in there, you got to go to that event with Taryn at Running at Night. Yeah. Okay. So my question for you, all of this leading up to, is last year I went between Christmas and New Year's, and it was I had a great time. One of the things that was nice is one day I had several friends join me, so that was nice. Locals, I've got some local friends over there. That was really nice. And that helped with the lines and everything. But again, I'm really patient with lines, and again, the operations are so good there. It was not bad. But I would love to be able to get more rides. Mark Martinez, I know you first know Mark, another friend. He went there like a week or two before me, middle of December, and he was just bragging to me, "Oh, Andrew, yeah, you're having all those lines. I was lapping Taryn. It was a walk on." Yeah. So my question for you is I came up with an idea because with the jobs that I have, every job I've ever had, I have Thanksgiving Thursday and the day after off from work. So what I'm thinking of doing this year is just taking the whole week off, just having a few days to actually take off the rest I get off with holidays, and going to Europe, for like 10 days, the weekend before, the weekend after, and doing other parks too. But again, Europa Park and Phantasialand, multiple days at each. So, because I know that this year, for example, Phantasialand, they opened Wintertraum on November 18th. It's like right after IAP ends, which is perfect, and then right before Thanksgiving. So that first week of Wintertraum, which is our Thanksgiving week here, I know they don't celebrate Thanksgiving over there, so it's not a holiday for them. But is it busy that first week?
No, it shouldn't be. My advice would be to look up like the German school calendars. Look up the German and French ones, because kind of close also. Just so you can kind of time it, because I know the Germans do have a fall break, but I'm not sure exactly where that lies. But I did go I think early December, late November time last year, around Thanksgiving, and it was dead.
Nice. Okay. All right. So it sounds like I'm on a sound plan here. So yeah, because you're an expert, so I trust your judgment. That's encouraging. So thank you. I appreciate that. And that's a good advice about the school calendars. So, all right. Well, hopefully, listeners, if I haven't done it before, Marina has sealed the deal in terms of you need to go to these European parks, especially the German parks, and most especially Phantasialand and Europa Park as well. Those are just so amazing. So, well, thanks for nerding out with me about Phantasialand. That was fun, of course.
Anytime.
So. Okay, so last couple of few questions here, kind of just general questions we ask all of our guests. So this next question, we have this in here because one of the first people that David, our founder, you kind of met briefly here before we started recording, Marina. He lives in California, and one of the first people he met after he started Coaster Challenge became one of our first fans of Coaster Challenge and supporters. Him and his parents, Dusty Lystra. He is very young. He's even younger than you, and he's very sadly passed away this past year. And it hit David very hard, understandably. So it made him think about mortality. And he went to Dusty's memorial, which was a great memorial, very well done. And out of that, he came up with the idea to have this question. So this is our Dusty Lystra memorial question, if you will, which is, Marina, how would you like your family, your friends and colleagues to remember you by? Hopefully many, many, many years from now, you have a long life, but whenever your life is complete, I should say, put it that way, how do you want your those that knew you to remember you by?
I want to be remembered as someone who was always willing to help people. Someone who made a difference. That was part of the reason I wanted to go into psychology originally. Was because I just wanted a job where I could help people and, make a difference in people's lives. So, yeah.
That's great. Yeah, and I remember you mentioned you like to help people earlier, and that's how I am too. You love doing that Coaster Kids Day at Busch Gardens Tampa and helping those kids and the Be Brave Challenge, and that's awesome. I can imagine that. I'm guessing, would I be correct in saying, by the way, Marina, that is one of your favorite days of your life that you've had?
It was very, very special. I'm very thankful that I got to be a part of something like that.
Not surprising.
Yeah, being a part of Coaster Kids and Thrills United, like in general, has changed my life so incredibly much. I definitely would not be where I am today without it. So I'm very, very thankful.
That's awesome. I love it. Yeah, like I said, I love to help people too. And like one of my favorite things, kind of relating to the topic of Coaster Challenge and parks and everything, is one of my favorite things to do is whether it be here in Orlando or elsewhere, where I have a friend, maybe a friend from out of town, come in to visit, and either go to a park that I know well, but they've never been to, and to be able to kind of, and it's not the kind of thing where I'm like running them around the park, telling them what to do. Oh, we got to go here next. It's about, I always like asking, hey, what do you feel like doing next? You want to do the ride? You want to get some lunch? You want a water ride? You want a coaster? Kind of guiding things along, but like helping them to have like the best day ever at that park. And being the tour guide, the helpful tour guide, and like, and then seeing their reaction, taking people, especially to a place like Islands of Adventure for the first time. I've done that with a bunch of people, and just seeing how their mouths just drop the whole time, and just how they're blown away by the Potter rides, Hagrid's and Forbidden Journey, of course, Velocicoaster as well, and Popeyes and Spider-Man. Spider-Man is still an incredible ride after, it was an opening day attraction for Islands, and it's still 20 plus years later, still amazing. And yeah, so doing things like that. I love helping people, just helping people in general in life. I'm always there for them.
That's always very special. One of my favorite days I've had ever was my sister's birthday last year.
Yeah.
We went to Epcot, and I went with my sister and my mom, and they haven't been there in like years, just because, Disney's expensive now. But they bought a day ticket, and I had a pass, so, I had been going to Epcot almost every day at that point. That was when Guardians opened, so I showed them around the park. Like we had like the best day, and it was like so much fun getting to see them like have a great time at Disney, because we hadn't all been together in like a very, very long time. And I got them on Guardians. We got my favorite song on there, and it was
by the way,
Everybody Wants to Rule the World.
Oh, I think I knew that, because I think you posted, or maybe I posted, you commented, because that's my favorite too. Oh yeah, that's the best song. It fits the ride so perfectly, because that ride is not a thrill coaster. What's that?
Exactly. I said it's my favorite song of all time.
Oh, really? Oh, yeah. I mean, Tears for Fears is great in general. Yeah, no, it's one of my favorite 80s songs. I'll say that much.
Yeah.
But, Guardians is not a thrill coaster. Yeah, it's a launch, but it's to me, it's more of like a chill, one of the most fun rides out there. But it's really a chill kind of ride, and that song fits it so perfectly.
It's one of my favorite experiences I could have on a coaster, and because of that, Guardians is my number 2.
No, I very much respect that. Guardians is definitely one of the few Disney coasters that ranks highly with me, along with Tron. I love Tron so much. But yeah, no, I totally respect that. So here's another example, and I'm sure you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Even if someone has been to a park before and I'm helping them out, like going on a coaster they haven't been on yet, like taking people on Guardians. And I've done it with so many friends, and I'm like, okay, trust me. I'm not saying this to you, I'm saying this to my friends when we go to Guardians. I'm like, trust me, I'm going to request row 9. Make sure you ride row 9.
Yeah.
Trust me. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Not going to say anything more because we like to keep spoilers because there's people listening I'm sure that have not seen POVs and don't know. And anyway, listeners, row 9 requested. You can make row requests. Disney is really good about row requests on their coasters, especially those Guardians and Tron. So yeah, row 9. Anyway, so yeah, you seem like a very sweet person. I already kind of sensed that from you, just interacting with you, meeting you just briefly a couple times. And Scott, again, spoke so highly of you, but it doesn't surprise me at all now that we've kind of had a really nice chat here, like verbally, like so almost in person, like that you really like helping people, because I can see that in your personality, and that's really great. So you mentioned that's why you're going to psychology. You mentioned earlier, wanted to follow up on this, by the way, before we finish, that you're now doing theme park management. So I think I know the answer, but what park would you like to work at once you have that degree?
I actually don't know the answer to that yet.
Okay.
I'm hoping to possibly get my foot in the door at Universal. I've already started applying for a few positions there, and for my degree, I need 3 internships.
Oh, nice.
So hopefully either there or Disney. I'm kind of aiming high, but yeah, that would be really amazing.
Okay, so you'd want to kind of, maybe for practical reasons, stay here in the U.S. You wouldn't want to say move to Germany, get a work visa and work at
I
Fantasia.
don't know. Like I love Germany very much, but I feel like there's kind of more for me here.
Right. Right.
I don't know though. Things could change.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. Yeah. No, that's cool. I mean, Disney or Universal, with Epic Universe. When do you get your degree?
2025.
Well, we know what's happening in 2025, right?
Yeah.
So and maybe you can get an internship at Universal, one of those internships in the meantime, kind of get your foot in the door. Maybe already thinking of that, I bet. And then maybe you can get a job at Epic. So
That would be absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the Epic. Yeah, right. Awesome. All right. Well, I wish you luck with that. And I know you have such a great positive attitude. And you're a kind person. So, I mean, you deserve it. And I think, with positive attitudes, I've learned in my life, because I've not always had a really good positive attitude. And I don't always even have one now. I have my moments. I'm only human. But what I've learned is I've learned, with all the hardship I've been through tough times in my life, to look for the positive in any situation. And I can do that. I become really good at it, all honesty, all modesty aside, I should say. But being able to have a positive attitude in the face of adversity, it's very powerful. And I can tell you have a positive attitude, and just keep that up, and you'll go places in life. So
Thank you. I really appreciate that.
Of course. So speaking of, I just gave you some advice. So speaking of advice, we always like to ask this. You've given us some good pearls of wisdom as we've gone through the interview, but is there any kind of last thing you'd like to say, any kind of advice you'd like to give maybe our younger listeners or just our listeners in general, anything you'd like to share?
Yeah, so I have a few pieces of advice that I've heard that have really helped me out.
Awesome.
These past few years especially have been really rough. But the first piece of advice, it's kind of coaster related, is don't let your fears hold you back from things that might be good for you in life. Because I mean, you can take me as an example. Like, I was terrified of coasters, but like, once I conquered my fear, it's led to so many amazing things for me. So don't let that hold you back. And then the second piece of advice I have, which actually my mom told me this when I was really young, and whenever I'm going through a hard time, I like to remember this. She said, don't worry about it for more than 5 minutes if it won't matter in 5 years. And that's something that's really helped me, because I think that sometimes we all kind of tend to hyper focus on little things that seem like the end of the world at the time, but later down the line, it's really not going to matter. So don't, waste your time focusing on those little things and like getting in your head, because it probably isn't going to be the biggest deal later down the line. So that's really helped me.
No, that's great. Those are really good advice. And I love that, especially that second one where your mom mentioned to you. Your mom sounds pretty wise. That's I've not heard that. I mean, I've heard things similar to it along those lines, but not put that way. That's very profound the way she puts that. I like it. It's really good advice. That's awesome. Well, thank you for sharing. Appreciate that. So last thing I'd like you to share, whatever you'd like to hear, whatever you feel comfortable with, I would like to put out to our listeners. how can people find you, say, on social media? If you have a website, YouTube, and I know you, for example, you have Instagram, if you'd like to share that, Facebook, whatever you'd like to share, please share away.
You can find me on Instagram at Coaster Marina, and then that's my Coaster account. My main is in my bio. And then my Facebook is Marina Davatelis, and then my Twitter is After Hours Mar. So yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Marina. Thanks for sharing that, and thank you for joining me and talking about your coaster passion and kind of how your life has improved because of coasters and parks, and of course talking about Davatelis and everything else and the advice you've shared. So thank you for everything. I appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much as well.
Awesome.
If you enjoyed today's episode, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. If you want to see more of us, we upload every Friday. Be sure to like us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube, all at Coaster Challenge. Links are in the description below. Thanks for joining us here today.